All right, let's just jump right into it with a question that honestly sounds a little bit like science fiction. We're about to look at an ancient text that makes some truly mind-bending claims about the power of sound. And then we're going to see if modern science can help us make sense of it all.
I mean, just take a second and really think about that. Not just nudge your future in a new direction, but actually reach back and change the weight of your past. It sounds impossible, doesn't it? But what if the secret isn't about literally changing historical events, but about changing how those events live inside of you right now? So this is the kind of line that just stops you in your tracks. It's a direct quote from an ancient Buddhist text, and it's not trying to be poetic. It's laid out there like a fact. 40 eons, that's an unimaginable amount of time, and all of the mistakes made during it just wiped clean by hearing a name. So what on earth is really going on here? To even begin to unpack that, we have to look at where this idea is coming from. Because this isn't just some random, wild promise. It's actually part of a much larger system. You could almost call it a kind of technology for the mind, all hidden inside these ancient names. So the source is this text, the Kṣitigarbha Sutra, and it lays out a whole series of names of past Buddhas, and makes this claim that just invoking these specific sounds can trigger these profound, genuinely life-altering effects. And here is where it gets really interesting for us today. We could just take these promises literally as purely spiritual ideas about rebirth and what happens after you die. Or we could look at them from a completely different angle. What if this is a highly sophisticated instruction manual for the human brain, using the language of its time to describe what we now call modern psychological processes? Okay, so let's look at the actual data, the claims themselves. The sutra lists several Buddhas, but for now, we're just going to focus on 3 really specific, pretty incredible promises that are made. So first up, we have the Buddha known as Wubianshen Tathāgata. And the promise here is just staggering. Hearing this name erases 40 eons of heavy sins. A kalpa, or an eon, is a length of time so vast, it's hard to even wrap your head around it. So we're not talking about forgiving a few little mistakes here. The promise is for a total and complete reset. The second promise comes from Baosheng, and this one, it's like a spiritual safety net. The text says that just hearing this name, even for a moment, with a bit of reverence, is enough to guarantee you will never again fall back into a state of deep suffering. It's like it just closes the door on your worst possible futures, for good. And then the final promise, from Padmaśrī is all about this incredible positive outcome. The claim is that if this name just happens to cross your ears, you're granted the reward of being reborn 1,000 times in a state of pure bliss. It's just an unbelievable reward for what seems like such a simple, tiny action. Okay, so we've got these 3 huge, almost unbelievable promises. But what if we're looking at them the wrong way? What if the names themselves are a kind of code? What if their literal meanings are actually pointing to specific psychological states we can tap into right now? Let's try translating them. Okay, let's start with Wubianshen Tathāgata. The name actually means limitless body. Now, think about that. It's a brilliant way to describe a psychological concept we call decentering. It's this idea, you are not the clouds of guilt or anxiety that pass through your mind. You are the vast, limitless sky in which they appear. Decentering is that click, that shift in perspective where you stop identifying with your thoughts and you just observe them. And in that moment, when you realize you are the limitless awareness behind it all, suddenly 40 eons of sin or regret, they just lose their grip on you. Next up, Baosheng Tathāgata, which translates to precious victory. Now, our brains are literally hardwired for survival with something called a negativity bias. It means we remember the one thing that went wrong way better than the 10 things that went right. So chancing precious victory is like giving your subconscious a direct command to fight back against that bias. It's mental training to actively look for the wins, to build up that inner resilience that stops you from sliding back into those negative states. That is the real victory. And finally, Padmaśrī Tathāgata, which means lotus victory. You know how a lotus flower grows up through the mud but blooms perfectly clean? Well, that is a perfect metaphor for healing shame. It is that deep, profound realization that no matter what mud you've come from, mistakes you've made, trauma you've been through, your core self-worth is still untouched, still pristine. And accessing that feeling, well, it's like being reborn in a heavenly state right here and now.
So the what is absolutely fascinating, right? But the real question is how? How could a simple sound possibly create these big psychological shifts? Well, this isn't about magic. It's about biology. It's all about how sound can directly impact the physical structure of your brain. The source material actually uses this fantastic analogy. Think about your mind like a radio that's often stuck on the static of anxiety or regret. In this analogy, that ancient name is a very specific frequency. By repeating it, you are intentionally, manually tuning your consciousness to a whole new station, a station of clarity or victory or self-worth. Now, the scientific word for this tuning process is neuroplasticity, and it's one of the most exciting discoveries about the brain. Your brain isn't a fixed block of concrete. It's more like this dynamic, living network of pathways. And the crucial part is you can consciously choose which of those pathways to strengthen and which ones to let grow over.
So here's how it works, broken down into 3 simple steps. First, you have the input, that repetitive sound or chant. As your brain focuses on that sound, your brain waves start to stabilize, often entering what's called an alpha state, which is associated with calm, clear focus. That's the process. And the output? With enough repetition, you are physically building new neural circuits for these positive states, while the old, worn-out circuits of guilt and shame start to weaken from disuse. You are literally, physically rewiring your own brain.
Now, this all sounds great, but it might also sound like it's going to take years of sitting on a mountaintop to achieve. But what's so amazing about this ancient text is that it emphasizes the exact opposite. Over and over again, the sutra uses this very specific language. It says the benefits come from a moment of reverence, or in the time it takes to snap your fingers. The real power isn't in how long you do it, but in the quality of your attention within that one single focused moment. And that just brings this whole grand cosmic idea right down to a human scale. Real change doesn't start with 40 eons. It starts with one conscious moment, one intentional breath, one focused sound that helps you realign your own mind. So here's the most important takeaway. While these promises might have been framed in terms of future lives and karma, their real power is for us in the present. This is a practical toolkit. It's a way to de-escalate anxiety when it's rising, to challenge that voice of self-doubt, and to start reframing your relationship with things that happened in the past, right here, right now. So what this ancient code really suggests is that you hold the power to retune your own mind. And that leaves us with a question that isn't really spiritual or historical, but is deeply personal. What's an old, painful story that your mind keeps playing on repeat, that you might be ready to start rewiring, one sound and one moment at a time?